Okay, let's just see how it
Okay.
goes. Hopefully.
Hello. Yes. I can't
Is
hear
it fine now?
twice anymore, so I don't think it's yeah. Maybe let's get a heads up from people who've joined us just to let us know if we're
Yeah.
both audible. Hi, Nelo. Hi,
Okay,
Lishe.
guys, if you're still hearing the echo, please do send us a message to tell us if there's still an echo and things like that. Okay. Somebody says it's now better.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Finally.
Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Once again, for those who don't know me, I am Nelo Mabona, and pretty much today we'll be covering a host of topics which relate to the use of social media as a young person trying to enter the workspace and how it affects or has an impact on your employability. And I'm a professional digital marketer. And before I got cut off, I was basically just telling you guys that my career began in 2014. I was fresh out of matric, and unlike most kids, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And until I just decided to introspect on the kind of person that I am, and I gathered that I love day-to-day human interaction. I love talking to people, and I like being the central source of information or a source. So that's when I discovered that I could really do well within the customer service space. Until today, customer service is still one of my passions professionally. I then started doing promotions. A lot of us pretty much start there. And then I went
Yeah.
on to full-time gig as a call center agent where I was doing customer service for Vodacom, and then I moved on to a company called the Smollen Group, and that is where pretty much my career kind of kicked off. My BUD at the time literally handpicked me from about 150 call center agents. And she said, you know what, Nelo, I have been listening to your calls and I like the way you carry yourself consistently. And so for that reason, they afforded me an opportunity to go work at one of the company's sister brands. And that is when I was introduced to digital marketing, particularly social media. Fast track 5, 6 years later, I am now a social media manager and I have managed social media accounts of quite a number of local and global brands. If you are familiar with Tiger Brands, if you are familiar with Procter and Gamble, the likes of Always, Ariel, Pampers, they fall under the Procter and Gamble stable. I've also worked on brands like Mahindra, Kia, quite a number of them actually over the past 4 to 5 years within my social media management experience. But again, my passions particularly lie in customer service. And what I like the most is that my role is customer service, just offering it through digital platforms. And so you can imagine, whilst not only being on social media in my personal capacity, it's actually part of my job,
Yeah.
and the reason why I also feel very strongly about today's topic is because as I manage these brands, very often, people reach out to brands on social media. I'll be, as an example, I'll be managing Ingram's Facebook page, and in a single day, I can get at least a minimum of 2 DMs or inboxes of people saying, "Hi, I'd like to work for you," or "Hi, Ingram's, please hire me." And obviously that's not the right way to go about it, but what this tells us is that people are reaching out onto social media to find employment opportunities. It is something that is happening, but where we come in today is just to pretty much educate people as to how to go about it, and using social media as a tool of being employable, but in the right way. So we will be covering quite a number of topics, and this is basically touches on every aspect of using social media to your advantage, as well as just a few pointers on what should and what should not go onto your CV before you even start to apply. And so that just already brings me to to the first thing I'd like to discuss. And before I continue, I'd like for this to be an interactive session. In as much as I'll be looking at my notes, I'll still be keeping an eye out on the comments that are coming through. I'm happy to take those as we go. Otherwise, we can save them for later. At the end of the discussion, maybe have a Q&A, but I would like it to be an interactive session where you can post your comments and questions. Go. And so forth and so on. So basically, at this point, we all know, or well, I'd like to assume that we all know how a CV should be structured, right? Over the years, the structure, or rather the format of your CV has evolved immensely, and this is due to a number of factors. There's obviously scammers out there, fake companies, and we're just living in an age where you cannot be vulnerable with your personal information like that. So there are a few things that you may feel like should go on your CV, but actually aren't necessary. The first thing is your ID number, right? Can you please remove your ID number if it is on your CV? The reason for us having put it there is for some jobs that would pay particular attention to how old you are. Maybe that's a requirement for the job that you have to be of a certain age. That's the only reason why you need your ID number there, really. And so if it serves that purpose, it isn't really necessary for you to have all of it there. So instead of having your full ID number, it is more advisable for you to have your date of birth instead. And then your address. Again, your address, some jobs that do require you to be from a certain geographical area. It's not for them to know where you live. There'll never be a time where your employer comes to your house. You know what I mean? So it's really not necessary for you to write your full address, 13/15B, Dlangamandla Street. That is absolutely not necessary. The only thing, or rather what is more advisable, is for you to put at least the name of your area and your postal code and perhaps maybe the city in which you live in. So instead of your full address, you'll just write Orlando West, Soweto, 1804. That's all. Because again, you do not know, as you're applying to these jobs, are you sending your information to reputable institutions? You know what I mean? You do not want to be a victim of a scam. You do not want to be a victim of fraud. And so you have to be really careful as to what you put on your CV, because the moment you put it online, you don't really know how far it goes. So ID number as well as your address. I think I'd like to assume that at this point, we also all know not to include hobbies. It is absolutely not necessary for you to include hobbies. I actually wish we were on a Zoom call so that maybe I can project an example.
You can share something.
Yeah, particularly what my CV looks like. So in place of hobbies, what you can do as an opening on the first page of your CV is to rather add a paragraph that particularly speaks to you as a person and how that ties in to what the company is looking for, together with your experience. So this short paragraph will basically say, hi, my name is Nelo Mabona. I am an energetic young individual with, I'm a professional individual with an energetic yet composed personality. I enjoy customer service and human interaction. And I've learned customer service skills through my 4 years of experience. And for that reason, I feel that I would be a valuable addition to your organization. In that paragraph, you speak about who you are, your experience and how that works for the organization. At the end of the day, the company has a gap. You need to sell to them why you are fitting to fill that gap. And over and above your experience, companies also believe in personality. There's companies who will sometimes value character over experience, because when someone has a free spirit and they have a teachable nature, you are able to work with them as opposed to what qualifications or experience that they possess. And so it is important for you to add a personal flair and give the employer an idea of who you are as a person without making it personal, but at the same time tying it into what's the ask, which is why are you fitting of this particular post. And that you package into a paragraph, and it's the first thing any employer should see before they get to what's your experience, what's your educational background, correct? And then the rest of the body of your CV should never not include your duties, right? So I have edited and built quite a number of CVs for my peers or people who just randomly reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. And what I notice is that we are never really adding what you did at that job. So most of the time, you'll find that someone will add that I worked at ShopRite, and I worked at ShopRite from January 2018 to January 2019, and then they add a reference. But you working at ShopRite doesn't really give the person who's looking at your CV an idea of what you did there. Therefore, you can list that work experience under your experience, but it's futile because you're not telling the person who's hiring you what exactly your experience is. So under each employment on your CV, it's imperative for you to list at least 3 of your duties that you performed during your tenure in that position. Correct? So you will say, instead of I worked at ShopRite and your start date and your reference, rather add the name of the company, the name of your position, as well as what you did. So you will say, I was a packer, and being a packer included moving trolleys from one side of the store to another. Whilst I was a packer, I was also responsible for ensuring that things that are expired are off the shelves. That way, even when you are not necessarily applying for another packer position, you are giving the employer an idea of what you can and what you have been doing, and they can easily match that to their job spec. So you'll find that maybe your experience was a packer, and now you're applying to be maybe a store manager. Because I'm now reading duties, I know that someone who is able to push trolleys from A to B will definitely be able to facilitate.
Okay, so I just wanted to...
I don't know if I'm making sense, but yes.
Yeah, in terms of the length now, don't the employers look at how long your CV needs to be and things like that?
Yes, absolutely. So I've been working for 6 years. My CV is only 2 pages long.
Okay.
Because unemployment stats in South Africa are high. And you can be guaranteed that for at least one position, there's hundreds of other people, that have applied for that same position. And, excuse me, you really want to grab the attention of whoever is sifting through those applications. And if they have to go through your 10-page CV, whereas Nelo has a 1-pager that tells them everything they need to know without having to page through everything, you're already at a disadvantage. So the industry standard is 2 to 3 pages. Cannot exceed that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you'll obviously have your experience. Your experience should always come first before your education. Again, why? Employers value experience. And this is arguable depending on the type of role that you are applying for. But in my advice, on your CV, it's always preferred to have your experience first and then followed by your educational background.
Okay,
I
can I please ask,
yeah.
in terms of experience, you start with your first job or your latest job?
So you have to start with your most recent experience. That's a very good question,
Okay.
actually. You have to start with your most recent experience because those are obviously the skills that are still very fresh in your mind and that you are probably recently exercised or still are exercising. And so, yes, so from the top, it will be your most recent experience. And then at the very bottom would be your first job experience.
Okay.
And then in terms of references, it's also not necessary to have these on your CV unless it is particularly, like, specially asked for on the application in which you're applying for. The reason why I say this is because they do consume space. Secondly, there isn't an employer out there, or there aren't many employers out there who look at your CV at first glance and already they are calling your references. You know what I mean? It's only towards the end of the recruitment process where you've been called in maybe for an initial interview, a secondary interview, and maybe you've been given a task and then you've gotten an offer letter. It's only around those stages of the recruitment process where your references are being called. And so it's not necessary for you to have them on your CV. When an employer is interested in doing a reference check and they are not appearing on your CV, they will request this from you, and you can share them via email directly to the recruiter. Because now, remember, we spoke about confidentiality and personal information. Now, not only are you putting your personal information on your CV, but also compromising someone else's information on your document. So it's not necessary for you to have references on your CV. When an employer does, you are able to then share them well. There's a question: do the type of references put on the CV really matter? Absolutely, yes. So obviously for someone with no work experience, right, it does become quite tricky. I remember I had the same challenge when I was applying for my very first job. So who's going to be my reference? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
For entry level and school leavers, so I was a school leaver. I wasn't a graduate. I was very active in high school. I did public speaking. I did debate. I knew that going into promotions, going into customer service, being in the debate and public speaking club will work to my advantage. And so I added my English teacher as a reference. You know, it is frowned upon to add family members on your as part of your references, rather. So if you do not have past work experience, try to list somebody who is aware on a higher level or has facilitated you in some way and would be able to speak of your work ethic. This could also be maybe your church leader. They know that you are punctual. That's someone who'd be able to tell an employer that you are punctual. You know what I mean? Your school teacher, your principal. Perhaps you did some volunteer work like I did. Whoever you were reporting to at the center where you were volunteering. Those are people who are able to speak on your behalf professionally, as opposed to your brother or your mother who just say, oh, you know, Nelo is nice, bubbly. I know we love that word. She's so bubbly. Those kinds of things don't really sell you to a potential employer. And if you do have work experience, naturally, the best person or the best people to put under your references is your immediate line manager, not your HR. HR doesn't know what you do, when you wake up every morning and get to your desk and start work. It's your team leader, your supervisor, your manager, or whomever you directly report to. Sometimes I know I used to work quite closely with my manager, but I would also work very closely with their manager as well. So you could also add the head of that division, because that person is more or less exposed to what you do on a daily and your skill, and they would most likely give you a more, what would be a more valuable to a potential employer. And no,
So
you
there's a
cannot include
question
cousins
here.
as reference. Yeah, no.
To
Family
the
members
type
are
of
completely out. Okay.
okay, do the type of references put on the CV really matter?
Yes, so that's basically what I was speaking to right now. I saw that question just as it came in. Yes, the type of CV references really do matter. Essentially, avoid putting family members and always try to prioritize people that you've either reported to or are able to speak to you or speak about you on a professional scale over and above what they know about you as a on a personal level, right? And when you include references, you include full name and surname, that person's company, their designation, their telephone number, and or email address. So my reference will be Offense, an offense's surname, where offense works, or rather the company where I was reporting to offense at. Offense's title, they were my team leader or my manager, their email address, and or their telephone number, not a cell phone. Because the moment you put on a cell phone, sometimes, maybe the person that you've listed as your reference no longer works where you met them. That's completely understandable. But where you can get a telephone number, it just looks more professional as opposed to putting their cell phone number there.
Okay, but
Alrighty.
I think also in terms of the cell phone number, if the person has agreed for you to use their cell phone number, I think it's also
Yeah,
better.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you just reminded me of something. Whilst on the topic of references, it is important for you to let the people that you have listed as references on your CV know. They must be
Yeah.
aware that, so you just tell your team that, hey, just for future reference, I have added you as a reference on my CV. Should you ever in the near future receive calls, don't be alarmed. It's because I've shared that information. Okay. Okay, we saw that question. And then, because again, unemployment stats in South Africa are right, it's quite rare that you will find someone who is maybe skilled at sales, as an example. When you start looking for another job, maybe you resigned or you're retrenched or whatever the reason may be, or your contract ended, you'll often find yourself applying for things that are completely different from the experience that you had. That no one can stop you from doing that. We all have different beliefs and things like that, and faith and etc. etc. It's been done before, where someone who is very junior applied for a management position, knowing very well they don't qualify for it, but somehow that company got back to them, right? What you can do in this case, where you want to switch industries, or you are skilled, or you would be able to fulfill these particular duties, but it's not really aligned to your experience. This is when you have different CVs for different jobs. I just want to read this question. For a person who does promotions part-time, which references can they put on their CV and does the duration of the work matter? Yes, the duration of your work matters. Please add your start and end date. In promotions, you can either add whoever you are reporting to at the time, your supervisor, basically whoever you are reporting to. And yes, please just add when you started and when you ended. It doesn't have to be the specific date, the specific day rather, but just at least the month as well as the year when you started and when you ended. I hope that answers your question. Yes, so having different CVs for different jobs, right? I now, but say for instance, I want to go back to wholesale. I cannot have only one CV. The same CV that is supposed to sell me as a digital marketer will not sell me as the right contact center agent. Because if anything, when it lands on the employer's desk, they think, is this a mistake? So it's completely okay for you to have multiple CVs that you use for multiple jobs. But it's also important to remember that lying on your CV is a punishable offense. But there is a way of maneuvering around this. So for instance, under your name,
Yeah,
can you
I
still hear
can.
me? Oh, so what you can do is the first way is to have CVs with a different headline. So personally, on my own, I have a line under my name that says customer service, social media, HR. That already gives the employer a top line idea of my experience, right? But maybe I'm applying for something in science. I completely remove that. Because that same CV that I would have sent for a customer service digital marketing role is not going to work for me in this new science role. So you either remove it or you tweak it in such a way that would be more related to the industry or the job which you're applying for. Secondly, you can tweak your duties. So again, let's say you're a cashier, right? And your duties as a cashier are to process items at the till point, calculate change, and balance the books, or whatever the case may be. But now, what you will do is to reword your duties in such a way that portrays you as someone who is able to fulfill or meet sales targets. So instead of saying, I count change, you can say, or maybe let me make a different example. Instead of saying that your duties was just to check items out at the till point, you can also add that in addition to checking items out at the till point, you also would go out of your way to ensure that each and every customer who comes through your till is aware of all the specials that you have in store. That way, you are giving the employer that, this is someone who's got a sales skill. Yes, their main duty was to scan the items, but now they were also telling people of, you can return this and there's a special for this where you buy 3, you get 1 free. You know what I mean? So this is when you just tweak your duties and just reword it so that they sell you in such a way that you come across as someone who does possess that particular skill or who would be able to. And obviously, you will name these CVs differently. You will have a customer service one, you'll have a sales one, you'll have an admin one. It's completely okay for you to have multiple CVs that are for different jobs, because you also don't want to seem like that one silly person who didn't take time to read through the job. Employers don't appreciate that. We advertise a particular position and you know very well that you don't meet it, and you still send me your CV that does not at all speak to the kind of person I'm looking for. right? And again, guys, I just need to remind you that it is very important for you to be doing this because you cannot rely on your CV, but there are ways of rephrasing certain things in such a way that will work into your advantage for the particular role that you're applying.
Okay, Nelo, I just wanted to ask something. I'm looking at your CV and it has a picture. Is that important?
So that's been like a debate that's been going on for quite some time, and there isn't a set answer as yet. But
Okay.
mine has a picture for a few reasons, and I'll tell you why. So in my industry, or maybe let me just say in certain jobs, they, as shallow as it may seem or as it may sound, there are employers who make employment decisions based on your physical appearance. For example, receptionists, you are literally the face of the company. And so in such roles, yes, it's not necessarily a prerequisite, but it is advisable for you to have an image of yourself. And when you do decide to insert an image of yourself on your CV, it must be a professional headshot. So literally how you see me right now. My hair is out of my face. I don't have heavy makeup on. I'm wearing a shirt, or you can put on a blazer or anything that covers your shoulders, and it does not go all the way down to your cleavage. Because you are not trying to be sexually appealing. It's more of, do you fit, our brand image? Because there are certain brands, again, companies that do, look for this. In advertising, I know it matters. In digital marketing, with my previous agency that I worked for, it was absolutely, absolutely important for you to always look your best when you're coming to work. For professions such as cabin crew, or rather flight attendants, as some people may refer to them, it's important for you to have your image on your CV, because that's what the industry requires, for them to be able to determine appearance. But for some jobs, absolutely not. But in my opinion, I think it all just boils down to personal preference. If you do have an image that you favor, it's absolutely not a problem for you to add it on there. And additionally, there is just something about looking at a candidate's CV and you see their image. Remember, your CV is just words, right? But the moment you are automatically able to take these words and or this information rather and put a face to it, it just makes it feel more personal. It gives your CV that warm feel, because I'm not only just looking at what you're about, but I can put a face to it. I can see who you are as well. And so sometimes that may count for something, but it shouldn't or doesn't really play a role as to whether or not you get the job.
Okay.
Absolutely. And now we move on to how or why do you apply for jobs on social media? So I'm going to answer the why. We need to understand that employment opportunities now don't only lie within big organizations that we all know and have known for many years. Our peers can be our potential employers. That one random Facebook friend could be a potential employer. And when I say social media, I'd like to just maybe reduce that to particularly LinkedIn and Facebook, mainly because Twitter and Instagram aren't usually considered that much when you're applying for a job. It's not something that employers really look into. But your Facebook, definitely. Your LinkedIn, 100%. So when I say social media, within this particular conversation, I am referring to Facebook and LinkedIn. How do you on on LinkedIn and Facebook. So there's a whole host of groups as well as channels that you are able to join on these two platforms where they are pretty much treated as a job board. And like I mentioned earlier, it is possible for your peer or your friend or one of your followers to be your employer. And what we often find these days is that, particularly with Facebook, it's become a secondary form of a website. Out of all the social media platforms, Facebook is the one platform that allows you to house rather a variety of information. It allows you to add limitless pictures, and it doesn't matter whether those pictures are Instagram worthy or not. You are able to add a long bio section where you can fully go to extreme length in describing what you're about, who you're about. You are able to add very important information like your telephone, your address, things like that. Things that you can't necessarily, features that aren't necessarily available on Twitter and Instagram. And so you'll find that some companies treat their Facebook page as their website. And so even with applying for jobs, they would essentially then advertise them there. That's why there's a whole section on Facebook that is particularly for jobs. It's because it is something people are using the platform to seek employment. Right? So what you want to do when you're applying for jobs on Facebook, you first need to edit your own profile. Because the thing is about applying for jobs on Facebook is that it will, the moment you click apply, it automatically takes whatever is on your profile, and then it kind of, you work off of that as a template. So if you, on your profile, you have, you are working at fuck it, I'm teen, excuse my language. That's what's going to appear on your job application that you are sending through Facebook. If you are working at I am not working yet, still down, with those up and lowercase font, that's what's going to appear on your job application that you are sending via Facebook job application platform. So when you want to apply for jobs using Facebook, you first need to edit your own profile. Enter your details the same way you would enter them on your CV. Again, you guys are welcome to visit my personal Facebook profile, Nelo Mabona. You will see it there. It's got everything from my primary school, some of the pageants that I did, which I've now removed, as well as my work experience. Because when I come across a job on Facebook and I want to click apply, I know that I don't even need to attach my CV. And some of this information can be on your profile, but you can set it for it not to be visible to the rest of the world. Because I'm thinking maybe there's someone who's sitting there worried about, oh, now all my work experience and everything is on Facebook. You can upload that information to your profile, but set it to only be seen by you and not the public. This just makes it easier when you apply for jobs via Facebook. That information will appear on the application, but just because it's on your profile doesn't mean it has to appear to the rest of the world.
So, Facebook allows you to put your relationship status. So when
Yes.
applying for jobs, does that also count? Does it also go through to the employers or?
Absolutely not. So on the Facebook job
okay.
application, relationship status is not included rather. And even if you weren't applying on Facebook, your relationship status shouldn't have anything to do with whether or not you are fit for the job. But again, this does draw back to certain professions where you have to be a single young professional. I'll take the example again of flight attendants and cabin crew. I know in that profession you must be a single young man or woman who is not married, just because of the requirements that come with the job. But essentially, your marital status or your relationship status will not appear and should not have an impact on your chances of being employable. And then we move to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is by far the best social media platform to use when you are seeking employment. If you are a job hunter and you do not have an active LinkedIn profile, you are missing out. You are absolutely missing out. And for those, maybe there's someone out there who doesn't know what LinkedIn is. LinkedIn, in its essence, is a Facebook for professionals. So instead of
Yeah.
adding, you add connections. And
Yeah.
the word suggests it's connections. It's people from different industries, people from different professions that you connect with, and you're able to ideate. You are able to have access to jobs, industry advice. There's LinkedIn channels where compelling conversations take place there about certain, trending topics within the professional space. There's all sorts of things, really. If you can just imagine a social media platform that is particularly for all things work and employability. So you cannot not have a active LinkedIn profile, right? So it's very easy. The same way you would sign up for Facebook and Instagram, that's the same way you would sign up for LinkedIn. Upload a professional image, update all your information there. Again, just as you would on your CV, your work experience, your educational background, and then you will just start getting suggestions of people that you can connect with. At first hand, it will obviously suggest people that are on your contact list, but as you go, you can start connecting with your colleagues, and eventually you will start, seeing other people come up on your feed. And the more information that your LinkedIn profile has, the higher your chances are of being discovered by someone who's looking for the skill that you have. Again, I wish I could share my screen. For my past, my I think maybe my past 2 jobs, I've learned about them through LinkedIn. It was either someone who reached out to me and said, you know what, I came across your profile. I literally just typed social media manager, and then you are one of the people that came out, and I like this, I like that, I like that. Would you be interested in? Even now, I've just accepted another offer, but I'm still getting, in-mails from LinkedIn, from recruiters who are looking for someone with my skill. And all it takes is having sufficient information and connecting with the right people. That's all. And when you do start building your LinkedIn network, don't only focus on adding, because I know I fell into this trap once where I only wanted to connect with anybody whose job title is recruiter or HR. Most of the time you'll find that even people who aren't in recruitment, or people who aren't in human resources, are the same people who are able to share certain opportunities with you. Those are the same people who can reach out to you and say, no, Nelo, I noticed you do social media in my department. I don't do social media and I'm not HR, but in my department, we're actually looking for someone like this. So be open-minded when you're connecting with people on LinkedIn. Don't limit yourself to a certain industry. Don't limit yourself to certain professions. And in as much as it is a social media platform, it's not that relaxed. So you can't wake up in the morning and post your Sabawells or whatever the case may be. It has to, you have to treat it like a hub of information. Share certain topics. If you've experienced something in the workplace, share those thoughts onto your people. Hear what people have to say. Ask questions. You can go on LinkedIn and post on your status, as an example, how do I, please advise me, how do I counter offer another offer, or I'm looking for interview tips, please help. You'll never know who is within your network and is able to assist you. That's the kind of content that you share on that particular platform. The greatest thing about it is that it has a particular LinkedIn jobs section where you are able to, go into a certain company, not only see that one job that you're interested in, but all the other positions that that company is recruiting for. You can also see their salary scales. It's basically LinkedIn has a careers 24 built inside LinkedIn. And I'll tell you what the advantage is. The moment you start applying through that platform, employers automatically then have the opportunity to get to know you on a professional level even more, because now they're exposed to the content that you're sharing on the platform, which automatically then gives them an idea of who you are as a professional. They have sight of your your work experience, sight of your educational background and things of that nature. So it just works to your advantage. And sometimes when you apply through for a job through LinkedIn, it will even give you a notification back saying your profile has been shared with the job poster, as opposed to applying through another job board where it just goes through and it's gone and it gets stacked up in a pile with 500 other applications. So do make the most out of that platform. There are so many benefits that come with it. You can literally be headhunted, and the best way for them to find you when recruiters are looking for talent, one of the first places they go to is through the LinkedIn platform. Oh, I'm nearing the end. The last thing that I wanted to cover, or that I know must be a question somewhere, is how does what you post on your social media affect your chances of being employed? Now, it's obviously very important as a young professional to be cognizant of the kind of content that you're sharing on your social media, mainly because it can, in some instances, work to your advantage and against your advantage. And I'll tell you why. And this does not only speak to what you are physically are voluntarily posting, but things that you like, pages that you follow, memes that you share, the fact that you took your time to take that content and share it onto your personal feed could only tell the next person that you also are for that notion. You believe in it, even though it wasn't you who said it. But by sharing it, you're automatically attaching or associating yourself to that particular belief or that particular statement. So I cannot say for sure that when you're applying for a job, companies do go through your social media before they decide to shortlist you. I am in no position to advise you on that. But one thing I can tell you is that I've applied for hundreds of jobs, and there are so many of them that on the application form will ask for your Facebook, will ask for your Instagram or your LinkedIn URL link. And it wouldn't be there on an application if it's something that they wouldn't consider going through as part of the recruitment process. Again, your personal traits shouldn't have to hinder you or serve as a hindrance for you to be considered for certain jobs. But some professions do look at personality. For instance, if you're working in customer service and I go through your Facebook and I notice that you're just always rude, you're someone who's forever swearing, you're someone who's forever trolling, naturally, that just tells the employer that you're possibly impolite, you possibly have a short temper, but this is not the main way of gauging whether certain candidates are suitable for certain jobs, because you do get psychometric tests that are able to help the employer establish certain personality traits. But even so, it's still a proven fact that or rather it's still something that we are aware of, it's something that does exist, that employers do go through your social media. I wouldn't be so worried about your Instagram, but most of the time they'd pay particular focus to Facebook as well as your LinkedIn. And because again we live in a country and everyone is entitled to their own, you are able to be on the safe side and rather set your profile to private if you know that there are certain opinions that you share that could compromise your chances of being considered for a certain position. And again, it's never really a prerequisite. I've never come across a job application where I couldn't click next because I haven't added my Facebook profile. So it is optional. Pretty much like the topic of adding a picture on your CV. It is optional, but it does count for something. It also just draws back to the kind of industry you're in. I could never, in my industry, as a social media manager or as a digital marketer, send an application and not include my my personal, excuse me, my personal links. So it does depend on your industry, and it's also entirely optional. But just in general, do shy away from sharing content that is controversial. Shy away from sharing content that is specifically targeted at specific brands. Because you'll never know. I mean, for instance, maybe now you are part of the people who are saying, I don't know, wonke amashanga namnyama as an example, but the next tomorrow you are applying to be a brand manager for a skincare brand. That will not look good on your CV. It will not look good in terms of the employer is sifting through your social media and trying to gauge whether you would be the perfect fit for this position or not. So no controversy, no sharing of things that are targeted at brands, no trolling. I mean, I think at this point, that one, we pretty much got it on a lockdown. If there are any questions, I'd like to open the floor to that. And then, yeah.
Okay, you never touched the part when it comes to education as to like what you need to include there in that section.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. So, on your CV, under the education segment, you will start with your most recent education. So maybe that would be your degree or your matric. If it's your matric, you will then say the degree, matric, grade 12 / matric, or however you want to put it there. And then the school in which you went to and the year that you graduated. And then depending on which level in your career you're in, it's not important for you to put things like subjects. So if you're applying for entry level, then it's your first job, then you can go ahead and put your subjects that you matriculated with. But if you've been working for 2-3 years and you've studied, maybe you went on to do a higher certificate or a diploma, rather add those modules or your major as opposed to adding your high school subject. If it's a diploma that you did, again, you write the name of the qualification, full name of the qualification, NQF level 5, human resource management, start date, anticipated end date, and your major, as well as the institution that you went to. I don't know if I mentioned that. But basically, recent to the not so recent.
Okay, can I ask something in terms of high school? Let me say you went to, for example, Netherlands High, and then you went for from grade 8 till 10, and then grade 11 and 12 you went to a different school. So on your CV, which school do you include?
The most recent one.
Okay.
Whichever school you matriculated from, that's the most important one that should go on your CV.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Like, I'm truly, like every time I looked at your LinkedIn, I was very interested. So I really was interested in having you sharing this information because of what you really share on LinkedIn. So like, yeah, I'm truly thankful for accepting this opportunity to partner with us and sharing the information that you shared today. Like, I'm really, really grateful. I just hope I can share your CV with people so that they can see. Like, it's very informative, something different from what I'm used to. So that's why I keep on looking at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's something different. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, if you still have any questions, please feel free to send an inbox direct message to Nelo if the live will be off. She'll be very gladly to assist you in whatever questions that you really have.
And let's connect.
Thank you.
LinkedIn. Nelo Mabona on LinkedIn. Let's connect on Facebook. Nelo B Mabona on. Oh, I actually wanted to suggest something. There's a number of groups. I think I touched on it, but I forgot to mention these groups where you can go look for jobs on Facebook. I know from the top of my head, there's one called I Know a Guy, and there's another one called I Need Someone Who, and it's got 3 dots at the end. And then for people in my industry, graphic design, marketing, advertising, you can join a group called The Resource. There's also another group called Freelancers of SA, as well as creatives and I think creatives and arts of SA. I'll just find those names and maybe I can share them with you and you can put them up just so people also just explore those channels they are looking for jobs.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.